Welcome to another episode of The Unconditional Life. I'm Johnny.
I'm John.
Thanks for being here with us. We really appreciate it. Today, we want to talk about perception. Perception is a really interesting topic because it covers it's a very large, encompassing topic because perception is, it's everywhere. It's all over the place. So to kind of give you an idea of where my mind's at with perception right now, imagine you're walking by a still pond, okay, and in that water, it's perfect day, there's no wind blowing, anything like that, birds chirping, whatever, you set your own stage in your mind. Walking by a clear lake, and there's a mountain range off in the distance. You can actually look into the water and see that mountain range perfectly. It's just a perfect mirror image, right? Now, if somebody decides to have an opinion or a reaction or a feeling about that, imagine they've picked up a stone and thrown it into the water and created some ripples. Okay? Now, has the mountain range actually changed? No. But the image that you're seeing in the water has changed because somebody had an opinion and kind of changed the way we see the image. Okay, so
I like that.
A lot of it, and that's basically perception for me is being able to see what's happened or see what's real around you and having your own distinct individual opinion about it. That's really what perception is.
I think perception's a really interesting thing. In specific, and I'll preface it with this. As we go into this, just ask yourself, is it possible? Is it possible that someone's perception actually creates their reality? And that while there's one thing happening, say there's 5 or 6 people enjoying dinner, there's actually 5 or 6 dinners going on based on what we're paying attention to, what we're perceiving. And then we all go home to our respective abodes and we share with our partners what happened that night. And I dare say that if there were 5 people there, there are 6 things that happened that night. What all 5 of us saw, our perception or our reality, if you will, the truth for us. And then if we could play the video, we're all just a little bit not quite on with what really went down. And so
We all saw it slightly differently.
yeah, just a little bit different, which means, and I one thing that really sunk this into me as a younger father, the viewers, you don't know this about us, or about me in specific, but you might have learned this. I'm really passionate and I'm really loud, not intentionally. I don't mean to be loud, but I'm passionate. I've also worked in an arena where I have a lot of heavy equipment around me, noisy things. So I tend to be a little bit loud. One of my children would always say to me, "Why are you yelling at me, Dad?" And I would constantly say to him, "I'm not yelling at you. I'm not yelling at you." And then I realized one day, wait a minute. In my reality, I may not be yelling at this child. But in their reality, Dad's freaking out. And he doesn't understand why I'm being so loud and so animated. And for me to just tell him, "I'm not yelling at you," only tells him what I'm seeing isn't true. How confusing is that for a child?
Yeah, that can be really, really confusing.
For an adult.
Yeah, because and that's just it with a kid. They perceive things so much differently than we do. Well, everybody does, not just kids and adults, but everybody perceives it differently. I think the perceptions we all carry are what actually make us different. Beyond perception, we're all kind of, we all walk, we all talk, we all think, we all speak, we all smell, we all see. We all do the same stuff. One thing we all do differently, and this may be the only thing that leads to all of our other differences, is we perceive differently. And so perception, it's your perception is your right to interpret the reality the way that you want to. And that's a beautiful gift. That's what makes the world such a beautiful place. Everybody's different ways they look at everything. And it also, somebody else's perception, if you allow that in, and if you really listen to somebody. So when I have a conversation with you, John, I'm not listening to the words that you're speaking to me. When I try to understand somebody, I try to understand their perception. And that's from every angle. That's why I hardly ever get mad. I don't, ever get, at least at individuals and stuff like that. There are little things in my life I still get mad about, of course, but
Oh, of course.
it allows me the freedom to experience you when I'm talking to you if I stop pushing my perception and just try to listen to your perception. That's an incredible gift. That'll allow you to see the world through somebody else's eyes for a brief second, which will allow you to be objective and really frees you to love somebody.
That reminds me of a good quote a dear friend of mine shared with me at lunch last week, Lane Monson. If you listen to this, thanks for sharing this with me. Oh my gosh, my brain just totally went flat. He shared with me, it's funny when that happens, he said the greatest gift you can give another human being is the gift of understanding them. And I thought that was really powerful because most of the time we're too busy formulating an answer or a rebuttal. I even notice it when we're engaged here with our audience. Sometimes you'll say something and I'm so busy with what you just said that I totally get derailed. And then I realize, he wrapped all that up without
Your
me
mind chases
interjecting.
it.
I should have just stayed on understanding that come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's really a great gift. If you're focused on understanding instead of criticizing their perception of their reality, because why does it matter? It seems that most of us just need a credible, a witness to our experience, to be heard.
Yeah.
And often we get into a right-wrong game based on something we perceive differently. I love that
That's
gift
it.
of just totally allowing someone to perceive it the way they do without making it red or black or right or wrong.
Yeah. And that's, so what you just described, I think, is one of the big problems that we have right now, is everybody's so focused on driving their own agenda or thinking that the way they perceive everything is the way that it is, that they don't open themselves up for more opinions, or if somebody has a different one, it does become right or wrong.
Absolutely.
Look, I'm somebody for a long time that has believed that you can't legislate morality. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people trying to, make a standard rule where it should be this, it should be that, and they're talking about moral things. I'm not talking about going over the speed limit and getting a ticket. I'm talking real big issues. The problem is with morality, things that you think are moral or right, or basically morality is a person's individual right or wrong stance on everything, But if you're so tied up in that, you don't realize morality, the things that you think about or that you judge yourself for or communicate with, it is different for every single person. Not one person on this planet. There are 8 billion different ways to see everything on this planet. You know what I mean? And if you are stuck with your perception, thinking that your way is the only way that it is or should be, or you've got the perfect model and idealism of the world, if you have that mentality, you're going to miss people. You're going to look right at them and talk to them, and you're not going to hear a thing they're saying. You're not going to understand them. You have to allow people to have their own counsel and to have their own perception and understand that that's okay. So I no longer try to say, hey, this is right or wrong. I now am talking to people and I go, you know what? Let me try to figure out how you're seeing this, John. Let me try to see it through your eyes.
Yeah, share with me.
And see, dude, when you do that, there's a whole nother world you're experiencing. There's 8 billion different versions of this reality happening right now.
On that note, and this is, the more that I consider this particular aspect of things, the more it takes me to that place that the more I learn, the less I know.
The more you realize you don't know.
The more I realize there is to learn. It's
Yep.
just deeper, it's bigger, there's broader and bolder and more to learn. And we're not forwarding an agenda. We just want you to think and talk, about this whole thing. Just ask yourself these questions. But as I go into this topic of 8 billion perceptions, right? Now, and really land on this for a minute. 8 billion perceptions. Even if we allegedly, because I have subscribed in my life to several different mainstream beliefs. But as I dove into those, one was a religion that I belonged to and was a part of for a major portion of my life. But as I dove in and I learned, in the dozens of interactions that I had, there were dozens of versions of the true thing that we were
people
pursuing.
in the same meeting were seeing it differently.
Yeah, and even other than, to me, honestly, other than mathematical equations, which they are the way they are.
Numbers are numbers.
Everything else is pretty subject to the observer. And I think in the realm of quantum physics, we've discovered that just watching something changes how it happens.
Absolutely.
So I would pose to you that if a child, a spouse, a coworker, a sibling, a parent comes to you with a different version of something that's going on in your relationships in your life, maybe, just maybe, you should consider that it's true. Just because I've learned that
it's
all
at
change.
least true for them.
It doesn't have to mean, but I guarantee you that everything you see, there's a good show I'd refer you to. I think it's on Netflix. It's called The Mind Explained. They talk about our memory. Most of us, the thing that I thought was most significant is, you know what the least credible testimony or the least credible evidence in a crime scene is? Eyewitness. Eyewitness testimony. We remember less than half of what we see 1 year later, if we're good. And so go back to that. All the things you think you remember perfectly well and you're ready to just go right to war with somebody over and take right to the end. At least half the time you're freaking wrong. And I, for me, have learned the freedom comes on from the other side of me willing to be wrong. To go, you know what? Let's go watch. Yeah. It's just like, let's go read the contract. Neither one of us remembers what we signed. So it is possible to have 8 billion totally different truths going on.
Absolutely it
is. It is possible.
Well, I learned long ago from my father, who's a very wise person as well, that you are a product of everything that you've partaken. Like I've said this before on one of our episodes, I can't remember when, but every experience that you bring to a new experience makes it unique. So even sitting here today, John, we're both here right now experiencing the same thing, right? We're in a studio doing an episode. But yes. You are bringing a completely different bag of experiences to this experience than I am.
Absolutely.
Which is what creates that perception. All the things that you've agreed with or disagreed with your entire life are what create the perception that you are right now. And it's a beautiful thing because we've all eaten so many different things as far as the and of course I'm not talking about actual food, but
just what we've ingested,
what we've taken into our auras or our personal experience here. I think perception is one of the greatest gifts. It makes the planet so colorful. It makes everything so beautiful. Because that means that there are so many different ways to perceive the reality. And when you really sit back and think about that, that means nobody on this planet will see anything the same way you do. Not even, I mean, they could be close, I suppose, but nobody's had the same experience the exact same way. It's never happened.
And isn't that, I mean, we're all searching for and isn't that crazy? We're all searching for individuality while we try and fit in. I would pose to you that the key to freedom is on the other side of this single concept. Allowing everyone you come in contact with the freedom and the space to perceive their experience the way they do. And to lovingly listen to them and support them without judgment, without placing our lens of perception on top of them.
Yeah.
That's my take on this subject.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, we want to make sure that you guys, what you just said is where we're going with this ultimately, is that be able to perceive another person or interact with them without the judgment and without the shame and without your twist on your reality that you're trying to impose upon somebody else's reality. Ultimately, we're just trying to help it so that we can get to a point where we love everybody unconditionally, and this leads into that, being able to see somebody's perception unconditionally. Thanks for joining us, guys. We love you.
Man, have a good one.